2, 3.
Hey y'all, this is Dee.
And this is Shelbie.
And we're from Bitch Please. Welcome back to
episode 55. We are here today and we have a special guest today. Got my sister on. Her name is Sabrina. So she's going to be talking a little bit about herself. She's going to talk about just being a Latina woman in the education community, what she does for a living, you know, just this, that, and the other things, just trying to be out here and educate folks. But yeah, so we have her here today. So let's give a warm welcome to Sabrina. Yay!
Hello. So before we get started, we're going to do what we normally do.
Mm-hmm.
How are your shoes?
They're fine. They're great. They're lovely. I'm flustered. I'm flustered and I'm frustrated. Only because I tend to put myself on an invisible timeline that's not actually there. There's no point in having a timeline because there's nothing else going on in my life or my day for me to force myself to be on a timeline. So I'm a little flustered. Well, other than that, overall, I had a really good freaking day. I got my nails done yesterday. I've had a couple days off just because I can. So I got a couple days off. But yeah, no, other than that, my screws are fine. I'm just currently at this very moment a little flustered.
Okay.
Yeah. How are your screws?
My screws are not great. Brina, how are your screws?
Girl, you can't do that. If you don't make me explain my shit, it is.
My screws have been very bad, guys. They've been very bad for a few weeks. Actually, it's been longer than a few weeks, but it's bad. It's bad. How are you, Brina? How are your screws?
Oh no, you just passed the ball real quick. They're good. They're screwing. You know, the screws are screwing. Today was an okay day, man. Broke up 2 fights. Can't be too mad.
Love that. God, to be a teacher.
Yeah, we're thriving.
What ages are you around?
Well, this year I am around, I work in 2 buildings, but I work in a K-8 building. So kindergarten all the way up to 8th grade. So you get the best of all the worlds.
Oh, God damn.
That sounds rough.
That sounds terrible.
Kudos to you, though.
I love you so much for that.
You gotta like it. You really gotta like it.
That's what you hear a lot when people are talking about teachers. Like, teachers just really, you gotta love to teach to be a teacher.
Yep.
And for the teachers that don't, you can tell that they hate where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
you'd be surprised how many teachers are told that, and then they still end up in education, and then they're bitching and moaning, and you're sitting there like, don't you know what you signed up for?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's a wild ride, especially right now with the way politics are and our socio-political climate around education and all sorts of marginalized communities' rights. It's an interesting time to be in education.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
100%.
Sure.
It really is, because it's like you don't know, especially depending upon the state that you're in, you don't know what you can say, what you can't say. You know, it used to be more inclusive, and it's not.
Yeah. It was getting there for a minute, you know. It really had the trajectory of becoming a really equitable system until, you know, life happened.
Yeah.
Voted in, bought in, whatever you want to call it, and things changed. You know? And right now it's just one of those rough waves that you have to ride. And if you don't want to ride it, you know, totally valid, totally understand it. You know, you do you, your mental health matters. I don't know if I'm just crazy, but I'm still sticking it out because I really love education, and I really love working with students. So
yeah.
Well, that's beautiful.
Yeah, it takes a really special person to be able to do that.
Special person.
Ain't no way. Ain't no goddamn way. Ain't no way.
I don't even care what age range it was. Like, I don't know if I could do it.
No, I couldn't.
I don't know.
I couldn't do small, large, because really I want to slap adults most of the time, and I just feel like you give me like a 16-year-old who's
think they know everything.
You're close enough. You're close enough. You're close enough. Yeah. But anywho's, so what were you gonna say?
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Forget.
No, I'm not.
Okay. No, so my next question. Can we leave that in? Can we please leave that in? My next question was just to kind of like tell people a little bit about yourself. Like, what brought you into becoming a teacher? Just a little bit about you. You know, if you want to talk about my nieces, that would be great too. But just tell people a little bit about yourself.
That was my question. That's why I was like, never mind.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about how you got into being a teacher. Tell us a little bit about what made you choose that and so on and so forth, kind of where you went in life to get to this path. And if you want to talk about yourself personally, your little baby kitties, you can talk about your kitties, whatever you want, but just, tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Gotcha. Well, my name's Sabrina, and I live in Minnesota in a small town, not small, but like a smaller city in Minnesota. And I mean, the reason I wanted to get into teaching, and I think Shelby, you can probably recall this, but I for a long time when I was young, I loved the thought of being a teacher. Just in general, I would force Shelby to sit and play school with me. I'd force anybody to sit and play school with me. My dog, I'd be like, you want to learn something today? Let me tell you something. And, teaching just whatever. And I don't think, unlike some educators would say, they really love this illusion of like, wow, I'm a saint. I always wanted to teach others and I loved education. Girl, I love bossing people around. What you mean?
Well, know your truth. Know your truth.
Yeah, right now.
Say it out loud.
Yeah. But that was kind of where I was at. And then I went to college when I was 17 because I graduated high school early, lived in a small town with my mother and her partner at the time in Indiana. And so I was like, I needed to get the hell up out of there. And so I graduated early, went to a school in Indiana for teaching and got a really bad eating disorder. I've got issues with my family and my mother and all sorts of things. And so just mental health stuff kind of started compiling. And it's really hard. I think we put a lot of pressure on kids. And I say kids, no matter if they're 18 or not, because they're kids, to try and decide what do you want to do for the rest of your life and what are you going to be happy with? And I don't even know what the fuck I want for breakfast. What do you mean?
Facts.
I'm a different person than I was 2 weeks ago.
Facts.
2 minutes.
So, I don't know. It's a strange thing. So I started out with that, dropped out of college, went through real fun exposure therapy, I suppose you'd call it, for someone who is sheltered, and unfortunately got a pretty gnarly drug addiction, and I am clean now, thankfully, and I no longer face those kind of challenges in the same way. But I think it was after I quit bartending. So I started bartending for a while, and that's partially why I had where my drug addiction was really taking place, and where I think many people in the world is in the service industry, and it's a fast-paced environment, and you're around so much alcohol, and it's looked at as an art form, but you also have someone who's came in every single day, 3 at the clock, you know what I mean? And they're drinking tall double Tito's and soda right before they go to their job. And so you're dying, you're serving people and killing them, and then you're glamorizing it at the same time.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, so it was a weird sensation. I was still trying to get my mind right, clearly, and so something happened where I decided, I need to get out of this industry, and I got a job at a daycare, and that's where I started refinding my love for kids and for education and for just in general, kind of helping kids grow. So I was there for a while at this place, and it was bogus. It was bogus.
What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean?
So first of all, just a lot of there's a difference between a daycare and a preschool, right? And I don't think a lot of people realize that. So if you're in a preschool, you have content, you have curriculum, you have constant learning and education, right? If you're in a daycare, sure, you might have some circle time, you might learn whatever, but you're a certified babysitter, right? And that's essentially what it is. So this daycare was trying to operate like it was a preschool. And the people there, they went by this certain pedagogy or this method, right, in teaching, where you weren't supposed to ever tell the child no. And I always had a problem with that. And I saw so much.
Yeah. What? Because kids needs to be like, no, you can't do that shit. The
Thank you. And what? And I had so many issues with the director there and stuff, and she didn't really like how I did things. And at the time, I had just restarted my bachelor's degree, and was moving and stuff. So I was only there for like a year. And when I finally was like, okay, I'm learning a lot in college, and what I'm realizing is that, which it didn't really take college to figure out, that this is mistreatment, and I don't want to be a part of it. And I think that's how a lot of educators start, though, unfortunately, is through places like that where mistreatment happens, and they realize that, like, hey, that's not really how we treat human beings, much less kids, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, fast forward, I did my college degree. I did my undergraduate while working at a different daycare that was so much better. It was a private preschool, not a daycare, it was a preschool. And I ended up teaching there during COVID too. So I taught a kindergarten class and
nice.
All sorts of stuff. They had really awesome content. And I learned there something amazing about education, which is that we should never underestimate children.
That's true. Honestly, kids be smart as shit sometimes.
They do.
Bro.
I feel like they have this. I was just telling somebody this the other day. I was like, sometimes when I look at babies and they're like, and they're trying to tell, I'm like, they probably have the secrets to life, and we're just like, what? You just and then like, as you get older, it just kind of like goes away and you lose it. Because you think of like some of the gifts that you had as a kid that you just don't have anymore.
Yeah.
I don't mean like physical gifts, like mentally, like some stuff that you can sense.
Yeah. I mean, you come out of like a portal. You know what I'm saying?
So it's
like come out of a void of a woman's womb, you know, you got to have some sort of like.
Kids are, there's something so innocent, but so wise.
Yeah.
Children, right? It's kind of like, I feel like you have this wisdom when you're born, and then you're reverting, doing all this shit. And then you finally get that wisdom back at the end of your life.
100%.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting cyclical thing, right? But yeah, no, I realized real quickly at that preschool that they did something which I had never seen before, which is they were teaching 3-year-olds terms like metamorphosis. And I was like,
love that.
Looking over here, I was like, because I'm not gonna lie, it was a upper class white lady who ran the school, and I was just like, what is this lady trying to do right now? And it wasn't until I got a chance to really talk to her and stuff, and it's interesting because like on a political stance, we tend to have different views, but as educators, surprisingly, she was able to compartmentalize some of that and not let it seep into like some sort of indoctrination for children, and able to be open-minded. It's a strange thing that I rarely ever see, right? But so she said to me once, she's just like, yeah, we don't dumb down words here. If you're going to teach something, we teach the full thing because these kids can understand. And
they really can.
They did. I mean, they asked those kids like, oh, well, what causes the waves? And they're going to tell you the moon.
Yeah.
And they're going to tell you why. And they're going to show you on little Oreos why.
Yeah. Adults don't even know that. Adults don't even know that.
We had a conversation about geography the other day. And it was very sad.
Listen.
Very sad.
Listen.
Just in the States. Sad.
Listen. I'm saying. Oh my God.
Being on the sheet I signed, I don't want to talk about no geography because
I'm
stupid real quick.
Yeah, but the thing is like, that's the thing is like a lot of adults, they're just, education is such an important thing. It is extremely important, especially especially today. So, being in an area, being in a facility where you're teaching children about metamorphosis, and you're not sugarcoating things. You're talking to them like they are
Adults.
equals.
Yeah.
Equals. You know what I mean? You're talking to them like they're equals. As opposed to, don't get me wrong, the baby talk is cute and so on and so forth. But it's like when you can start educating them young and having them experience different cultures and having them experience different just things in general, like it will produce a more mature and I think more well-rounded adult.
Yeah.
That's the hope.
That's the hope.
Yeah.
That's the hope.
And that's a philosophy that I hope a majority of educators carry, but I unfortunately don't think, even if it is, that the practice ends up looking the same or implementation ends up looking the same, right?
Yeah.
So, and what I think about too is like thinking about historically, like education and how it's been oppressed, right? You think Malala, right? And the things that happened to her and the oppression that that women and little girls had over education. And you think about, slavery, you think about South African apartheid and the amount of oppression for marginalized communities with education is fascinating to me because I mean, knowledge is power. Like there's no other reason that someone would try to block someone from gaining that unless it were powerful and they
Exactly. 100%. Yep.
And that's why they did it to people of color. That's why they did it to the Taliban with the women over in Pakistan, Afghanistan. And still today, that's something that happens whether we like to admit it or not. I mean, just looking at the school to prison pipeline.
We talk about this shit all the time. Yes.
Color. I find it interesting that I think a lot of times some of this systemic stuff, it operates without us seeing it, and even when we're trying to keep our eye on it, it is so sneaky and is so ingrained that even the most equitable aiming of us sometimes don't see it, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that's a fault of those people. I think that's a fault of the system. Right. And so I think that's what we're seeing now. In fact, my school district just put out an email a couple days ago about reworking harassment protection based on the new Title IX adjustments. And so what they were looking at was completely erasing what it covers. Like it has a huge list of people that it covers and protects from discrimination, right? And one of them says gender presentation, and that's the one that they are looking to remove and have now removed.
Oh, good Lord.
If you're not careful, it can seem so like, oh, nothing happened though, because technically it's the way things are reported. But the interesting part about the bureaucracy of this is that semantics are key, right? They hide behind semantics. That policy they put out was 18 pages. How many of the educators that received that are parents or families, half of which we have migrants here, many, many from Somalia. And how many of those are you translating?
Yeah.
And how many of those are you making sure are summarized in a digestible way for people who either English isn't their first language or in general are working parents who do not have the time to read an 18-page policy change?
Yeah.
Right. So it's an interesting thing here because they play our district likes to play this weird game of like, well, we're protecting the Muslims, and that's why we're attacking the LGBTQ, or we're protecting the African American community, and that's why we're attacking the disabled community. It's this weird, like, take one marginalized group, hurt them, and then say, oh, it's because I'm uplifting this other marginalized group. That's why this one got hurt, guys.
Yeah. That's crazy.
That is wild.
I think the point I was trying to make was just that I think that marginalized communities are often pit against each other intentionally. to benefit the white upper class. And I think that has been a pattern for a long time, and it's systemic.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I agree. I mean, you see that often, like just even like politics in general. Like right now, you have, um, you know, Mexican Americans, Latin Americans, being targeted at the moment. That's like everybody's major focus, as well as transgender. Not necessarily like LGBT, QA, not the whole thing in general, but just transgender people in general. You know what I mean? Those are the ones that are being targeted right now, and it's getting other groups trying to target them as well. And it's just that's a very classic move.
Yeah.
It just moves from group to group to group.
It does.
Unfortunately, a tale as old as time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've done a lot of learning actually this year, because my current position this year, I've since I've graduated, I have my master's now in education and my undergraduate in elementary education. I'm certified to teach up to 6th grade. I've taught in Spanish immersion. I've taught middle school. I've taught kindergarten, 3rd grade. And this year I'm what's called an equity specialist. So what that is, for many people is the devil. And for me, it is my favorite thing I've ever done. It is, in fact, in a department of equity. It's hard to even say that sometimes right now because it feels like you're going to get just a target on your forehead the second you even say equity. But that is my position. And what it is basically we have an equity department and we have someone in there, a wonderful woman who focuses on curriculum. We have a awesome gentleman who does like our HR, and then we have a super cool dude who just heads up the department, right?
Nice.
All of my bosses are, I have one woman, one female boss, and 2 male bosses, and all of them are African American, which is lovely to see people of color in these positions, not only in higher positions in education.
Yeah, 100%.
Also in positions where it makes a difference. They're helping with curriculum, they're helping with a lot of things. And so underneath them, we've got like 10 or 12 equity specialists, and you're assigned to different buildings, right? And some people share buildings, and like as far as like, oh, I have this building, and this building. That's a lot. I have 2 buildings, and the way it works is 70% of my time I spend at one building, 30% I spend at the other building, right? So unfortunately, one building I don't get to do as much at.
Yeah.
But the other building I do a lot at. Now, because I have my teaching license and I'm the only equity specialist that does have their teaching license, I actually weigh heavy on that. So monthly, I send out equity newsletters to staff that incorporate all of the cultural holidays and cultural.
Nice.
And then I link them to resources that they can use in their classroom that are sectioned out by grade level.
Listen, I'm gonna just interrupt you real quick, girl, because my sister be doing it right.
I just want to say, I just spit everywhere. I just want to say kudos to you, first of all. I want to kind of go back to the fact that you now have your master's. You literally told us at the beginning that you dropped out of college, you went back and you got your bachelor's, and now you have your master's, girl. Like that is not nothing to just gloss over.
Yeah,
first of all.
did. She was like,
and I was like, can we go back real quick? I'm trying to be patient, but I'm like, I want to go back. So I just want to commend you for that, because that's a big deal, girl.
Huge deal.
Also, the fact that you are doing these things, and you're not only providing, you're not only letting people know, like, here are the days and these are the holidays and things that are being observed, but this is where you can find the information. This is where you can go to get some additional tools or whatever you want. Like, that is super helpful, and it's good to have somebody in the position like you that is there to allow other people to be able to do better in their jobs and to help these children, even though they're making it very hard to do so.
Yeah.
Very, very hard to do so, which I do have a question about that, but I'll let you ask your question first.
I don't have a question.
I'm not sure how much, I just don't know how much you can talk about it or not, but how is everything that's been going on, how is that affecting how you're able to do your job?
Yeah. like the abolishment of the DEI programs, all of that, how has that affected you and your ability to do your job? Or just like even like the event, like the, you know,
just with the changes in education.
Yeah.
Like, so my cousin, she works for education, but she works on the mental health side, and they've changed a lot, which really limits her ability to do some of the things that she used to do for the kids. And so I was curious, like with that part of it, but also with all the things with the executive orders, like how that has affected you and your position.
It's been tough, for sure. My ability hasn't changed because I refuse to let it.
That's right.
I'm the friend. She's saying nobody gonna stop me. Ain't never gonna break us down. Ain't never gonna hold me down. Whoa, I just keep on moving. Anyways, continue. Sorry.
No, seriously though, like that's always been my thing. I'm not going to adjust quality of education because people are busy bickering through bureaucracy. Like that's not these kids' fault, right?
Absolutely, 100%.
That's kind of where that's been. But so it's been an interesting year for a multitude of reasons. But something that's been interesting to me, and I can't say for sure that this is a direct correlation to what's been happening in our socio-political context, but what I can say is that this upcoming school year, our district decided to redesign its budgeting, right? And we just recently got something passed where a huge corporation in our city is donating mad money now. And we were like, oh yeah, people don't have to lose their jobs. Can't wait. Boom, here comes this budget thing. This budget thing puts people into 3 categories, right? You got the category where it's like, for sure, ain't nobody gonna touch your job. Like, that's the teachers, that's the paraprofessionals, that's, principals, that's people like that, special education, counselors, right? Second one is the one where it's a little bit more optional, right? And people get to pick and choose what works in their budget. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting is they disguised this as autonomy because they said, well, we as a district are no longer going to hold the budget. Each individual school gets to hold the budget. I have problems with that considering the turnaround of admin. How are you supposed to invest in something and then not have longevity for that? And then on top of that, it's a scapegoat and it's a slippery slope, right?
100%.
So now you'll love this. One of the titles that they put in that secondary category that people have just been, all the people in this category have all year been like, well, I don't know what the future holds for me next year, Yeah. Social workers.
Ooh.
Interesting. That is very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those people that give like resources and like homeless or have mental health issues. Yeah, those people. So they're optional now. Don't worry.
Wow. Now that's if they pick option 2 for the budgeting. The second option, is that?
No. Those are the positions.
Oh, so if they fall within that category.
Oh, got you.
So no matter what, this is like what it is. It's not like different options. You get all your budgeting and then you have to do it. Basically what they're doing is they're putting the firing on principals and the community. They're like, we can kill them as a family, guys. I'm like, lovely. I love that for us.
That's horrible.
What's interesting about that is, of course, I shouldn't even have to say it, but my job is in that category, obviously. Yeah. I don't care because I do my job damn well. So
I know that's right.
People have already said in meetings, like, yeah, we want an equity specialist, not just an equity specialist. We want that woman right there. And so my staff has stood up for me. And I'm like, okay, awesome. Thank you. They did not stand up for the social worker. What they don't realize is I work hand in hand with the social worker intentionally. I don't have to. Right. I do. Because our kids today have trauma. And trauma. ACEs, right? That people aren't familiar with. And it's like the childhood oppression, right? That happens, and these ACEs essentially build up to to symptoms of trauma, like actual, like real trauma. But these are the everyday things that a normal average kiddo is going through. What they're not recognizing is that that is rewiring their brain, and that's why you're getting so much of this behavior, right?
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely.
So they rewired budgeting and all that good stuff. And it's interesting to me because I think the average person who's looking at it is like, okay, this is very manipulative, very manipulative. And no one really, I don't think people are thinking about it as deeply. But what's interesting to me, I'm like, where is that money going that you just got? You had a huge thing, a referendum that you pushed and pushed and pushed. You had billboards. You went door to door. You got all this money, said, thank God we don't have to cut jobs. And then you're cutting the people who care about the livelihood in the holistic piece of children, right?
Well, I'm curious just in thinking about that. I'm curious with this new budgeting and the fact that you have like this corporation who's donating a lot of money, what their political agenda is in general, because I know they're trying to take out the social emotional learning, and they're very much attacking that. You know, they've attacked the critical race theory shit, which they thought and assumed were being taught within public education, and
we do not teach critical race theory in a public, like school for kids.
Yeah, but now like the new agenda is to attack the social emotional learning. And so it's like I'm wondering what the corporation and what their political views and their political things are, because if they can remove the social workers who are there to help the kids for like their mental health and their mental stability, you know what I mean? Like if that's their way of trying to get rid of social emotional learning, which I think is extremely conducive to children, and especially with children who have trauma.
And that's just this year. We've already had a parent come into the school because they wanted to personally look through the SEL curriculum.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, is completely legal, and you can come do that. I don't know why you're making a huge thing of it. Go ahead. We could have emailed it to you, but if you want to walk your butt up here, go ahead.
Absolutely.
Get your steps in, girl. I don't care.
Yeah, facts.
So we've had that. We've had just this year. There's been so much happening. There's a school in our district where right before the primaries, everything was happening. Right, elections happening. There was a young Caucasian man in a middle school, or not man, young Caucasian boy in a middle school who decided to go up to a African American girl, slap her in the face, and tell her that she's going to be his slave in 2025.
Oh, the fuck! Sorry.
That's wild.
That was after a week before where he called her the Ensler.
When was this? Where was this? This was in your school?
This was in one of my district schools, right?
I know you fucking lying.
Let's not forget, nonstop. This has been, if you guys can rationalize this more than I, please let me know. But there's this weird thing happening with kids right now, specifically in the middle school level. Let's first get ahead of it and say right around 5th grade is when you start to realize, hey, I've been taught all these things, right and wrong. But did you know that like if you actually do that wrong thing, like no one's gonna fucking smite you and you're not gonna like go to jail? Isn't that wild? And so they're like, wait a minute. So like that Ensler that like everyone's been telling me about? You mean I can just say it and nothing gonna happen? Yes, my friend, you can say it. And nothing is going to happen. You look racist. That's what's going to happen. Okay. In fact, you might be becoming racist. That's right. Now, these kids are constantly. The other day, I took down 5 or 6 pictures of monkeys on lockers. And some of these pictures were a baboon eating fried chicken and watermelon. And let's get this straight too. Half of the kids that those lockers were in, they were Black kids who put them there themselves. Rationalize that for me.
Wait, I need you to repeat that because I'm pretty sure I didn't hear you right.
Internalized racism is insane. So there are African American kiddos who are, using the N slur with a hard R to insult other kids, make fun of them because they were taught recently that the master bedroom was, stemming from slavery where the master slept.
Yeah.
And they're making fun of that. They're making fun of all this stuff, and they put pictures of monkeys in their locker eating fried chicken and watermelon. And I was so confused by this, and then I stopped and I realized this city has a ridiculous amount of immigrant kids from Africa. And what I realized very quickly is that a large amount of them have this idea of what it is to be Black in the United States. And all of that has been funneled through stereotypes, right? And so their idea, the amount of kids who are from Somalia, from the Congo, who are like, I'm a YN, brother, take that shiesty off your head and take a seat. Every kid there has a shiesty on, bro. And what's interesting is they don't know the history here, right? They don't know the history in the oppression that happened here. Was there oppression there as well? Absolutely. Absolutely. But they don't understand the connotation of some of the jargon, some of this rhetoric, this racist rhetoric, these slurs that they're saying, that they just think in their head, well, but Tyler, the Creator, but Kanye, but, and I'm like, you have not actually learned what it is to be Black in the United States. Now, I know that sounds strange coming from me because I'm clearly not Black, but even I know that you have a very warped view and very caricature. It reminds me of like minstrel shows, of like the flyers they had for that, right? Like very caricature-esque. It's almost like that's what's in their mind.
Wow. What were you going to say? No, you're going to forget.
No, I'm not.
Say it.
I was just going to say, wow. Like I was processing, but go ahead.
So my thought process is like, and here's where I start thinking about things in this sort of way, is like, you have these children who are immigrating in here, into America, right? You have these children who are directly from Africa immigrating here. And the fact that they don't realize what some of these are meaning at the ages that they are is wild, because then that shows that in the education system, we're not actually educating people, nor are we educating the children about what happened with slavery and what some of these things are, especially with younger kids, because I feel like that needs to be taught at some point. I don't know how old those children were that were putting them on. But okay, so middle school kids. So yeah, I think at that point, you know what I mean? We should have, at some point, we were already, at least at my age at middle school, we were learning about things about slavery and stuff like that. So they've been taught. But the thing is that it's the projection that America puts out to the rest of the world that black and brown people in the United States do not have it the way they claim it to be, if that makes sense. Like their life is not as black and brown people claim it to be. So it's like what America portrays out to everybody else is that we're all living fine over here. Everybody's cool. Black and brown people have had it easy since, slavery stopped or whatever. Everything was copacetic right after. And so, people...
It stopped. I forgot about how slavery just stopped.
Yeah, slavery just
done. And then we were all together. All right, my Lord.
Right. Slavery just stopped. I just had to have a conversation with somebody, and we'll talk about it after, but I just had to have a conversation with somebody about how they asked a question about why is there Black History Month? Why do they get a month? They had a whole question. They had it. Yeah, I'll have to. I don't know. Maybe I didn't tell you. Maybe. But I had a whole conversation with this person about how why Black people. They said slavery's over. Why do we have a Black History Month? And I had to explain to them, well, just because slavery stopped doesn't mean it stopped. You know what I mean?
And it didn't stop.
And not just that, but then there was the lynchings and so on and so forth. And the thing is that that's not being talked about. That's not being shown to other people. Like our history is not open, but it's what we portray to other countries and outside of our borders, and even inside of our borders, that it's not as bad as people make it out to be.
The thing that concerns me about that, especially at that young of an age, from both ends, from the white kids that are doing it and from the Black kids that are doing it, the kids that came from Africa that migrated in, it's concerning because it's like, not only are you not aware of your skin color, period. Because people outside of you being Black or brown, they're not going to see you as African. They're going to see you as Black.
They're
and
gonna
that's
see
just
you as
what
Black.
it's going to be.
If you are not white, you are Black.
Yeah. So those ideas that they have and those things that they're doing, once they get into like the real world, that's not going to fly. And so those things are going to end up turning and kind of flipping on themselves, and then they're going to be confused.
Yeah.
Which is, there's so much with that.
So much.
There's so much to unpack with that, and it's really unfortunate that that's even a thing. But it kind of goes back to the whole thing of educating, these kids about what happened in our history, and wanting to pull that information out causes stuff like this. Like,
yeah.
I don't know if that's necessarily the reason why, but because they are trying to pull this information out, not to offend the other kids, and it's like, but you're not allowing that education, you're not allowing that fair information to be spread to everybody so they can understand the history and the importance and the weight and the magnitude of why these things exist and why these things are important.
Why it's not okay to put a sticker like that on another child's locker.
I mean, that is really wild, but the self-hate is insane. And they don't even, I know they're young enough to not even realize it.
Yeah.
That's what's so sad. Like,
I was just
heartbreaking.
I was just having to talk to a couple kids because we've been having some issues with these slurs and stuff. And it's not just, Black and white kids. I mean, we have Indian kids. We have Muslim kids. It's Ramadan this month. We have some LGBTQIA kids who are using the F slur, thinking that it's like reclamation when they don't understand the nuance. They don't even know what Stonewall was. They don't even know who Marsha P. Johnson is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I mean, it's so interesting to me. And so what I did when I came into this position was something that no other equity specialist has done before, but I never understood why. And maybe that's just because I come from an educator background, right?
Yeah.
But I decided every month I go to every single classroom in every single one of my schools and I teach a 30-minute lesson. And I started out with Hispanic Heritage Month. I went into communication versus confrontation. We talked about cultural appropriation because Halloween was coming up.
Yeah.
First of all, that's great timing.
Yeah, that's really good. That's a really good topic for that.
The people that are in your school district are really going to be just really set up for success for real, because
100%
the things that you're doing.
Well, and it was interesting because, I've had some pushback on things such as, like, I taught about the Holocaust during it was International Holocaust Victims Remembrance Day, January 28th or 29th. And I taught about the Holocaust. And one of the reasons I did was because some people were like, well, I don't know if that's appropriate, which is such a subjective word anyways. I don't know if that's appropriate. And I'm like, what's interesting to me is that those Jewish kids don't get a choice when they learn about it. They learn.
That's facts.
It's only appropriate. It's only not appropriate when it can potentially affect or hurt the feelings of white kids.
Well, yeah. Because
we all have to grow up learning the bullshit that has happened 100%. To us at a young age. We all have to go through that.
Yeah.
And
it's hard for people to digest that, kids should learn about this. But I don't understand what's helping them, sheltering them for such a long time, and then shocking their system by teaching them, hey, everything you thought was kind and beautiful and rainbows, no. Murderers, dictators, genocide. Congratulations.
Yeah.
It's always really interesting, not to cut you off, but it's always really interesting, too, that they have these thoughts about, like, not wanting to teach them in the right time when they used to literally take their children to lynchings and have pictures
Absolutely.
With people hanging in the background.
You had, like, in the 50s and the 60s, they had
it's wild that they're concerned about the well-being of these kids when they were literally like, hey,
Absolutely.
Come on, we're gonna go watch these Black folks get hung today. You want some peanut butter sandwiches?
We're gonna have some peanut butter sandwiches. We're gonna cut off pieces of their flesh and eat it ourselves because that's just what we want to do.
Let's feed these little babies to the alligators. Let's go ahead and do that. Like, it's so wild to see we don't want to hurt their feelings. It's too young.
Yeah, but the thing is like these conversations they're had to have at home.
They're had to have at home.
Black and brown children have to have these conversations at home. Jewish children have to have those conversations at home because, anti-Semitism, because of, like Elon Musk doing the Nazi salute and stuff like that. They have to have these conversations at home. They have to learn about these things. So the fact that what is appropriate and what is not is centered specifically around cis male children is frustrating because women have to. Young girls have to learn about how to be safe and learn those things at home. That's not being taught in school. So it's just like these are things that are like everything is catered around the cis male white child.
It's wild.
What's interesting is I had a parent reach out to me, and most people don't even know who the equity specialist is, but I had a parent reach out to me and thank me for teaching about the Holocaust because her son was Jewish.
I love that.
Love that.
Like, yeah, dog, got you. I've had people be like, hey, can you put up something for Diwali? Hey, did you already check? Because it's already up, dog. Don't mess with me, okay?
Have fun.
So that was something, like in Black History Month last month, it was so much fun. We did this huge legacy quest, and I made it from scratch, and basically the whole school participated. You could earn points by doing a daily trivia question and then earn points by talking about the daily leader. And some of the leaders included people like Marsha P. Johnson, included people from the left, from the right. It included Marie Laveau. It included all sorts of people to really help them look from just MLK, like that's it. Like, no, that's not the association. And you're
There
only
were so many other people.
there's a very big difference between Black excellence and Black oppression, right?
Yeah.
If you only teach the oppression, you're painting people as victims and only victims. And
Absolutely.
that causes internalized racism, right? That causes internalized hatred. And so, like last month, I taught my kindergartners about colorism using the book Soul Way by Lupita Nyong'o. And by the end of it, I had a kindergartner who made her own melanin chart so she could tell people, you have a lot of melanin or you have a little bit of melanin.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's what my kindergartners are doing.
I'm glad she did that, and to bring that in a positive way. They actually used to do that with a little chart of colors to see like if your skin was light enough or dark enough to get into certain organizations. So that is interesting that to hear that she made that, but to use it in a way that is positive and not use it in a way to tear people down and tell them they can't participate in their organization.
It was a way of
great.
telling them to like, hey, the only thing that's different between you and that person is this little tiny thing called melanin, right? And so now you could ask any of my kindergartners in that school and they could tell you about that. Ask any of my first through third graders, they can tell you about Congo Square in New Orleans. Ask any of my fifth graders. They can tell you about Malcolm X and the actual truth about Malcolm X. They can even tell you about the NOI. If you go to my sixth graders and up, then they can tell you all about South African apartheid, right? This month we're doing Malala, we're doing gender equity, including transgender, and then we're doing Stonewall Uprising.
Nice.
Right? That's going to be good.
That's going to be really good.
All of these things are so important, not to mention a book was recently banned in our school district that's called The Rainbow Parade, right? The Rainbow Parade, I'm on a committee that, helps analyze these books. And basically the whole thing was that there's like a little picture of a grandma walking away and she's naked so you can see her butt, right? I don't know if you've ever seen books like No David No or things like that where they depict as well, right? Well, that's nudity. And so they banned it, right? And what's interesting is that the person who's in charge and like banned it, they said behind closed doors, they said, the reason that this needs to be banned is because of the Muslim community. And I'm like, the Muslim community? What the hell are you talking about? He's like, well, in the Quran, it actually says that seeing the opposite sex completely naked is a sin. And I'm like, oh, okay. So where's that energy for the Christians in Harry Potter?
Facts. Harry Potter's allowed to be out.
I'm like, so you're picking and choosing what minority community
Absolutely
you want to serve. Oh, but then I looked into it further because you don't fucking tell me shit and think I'm not going to look into it further.
I know that's right.
The Muslim community, a organization that's ran by them here, they sued the school district successfully 5 years ago. Oh, okay, but it's about naked people, huh? And then when they put out the thing, well, we banned this because of nudity, right? And even used a bias because there was a picture of a drag queen on a float, and they're topless, and you just see nipples, right? But it's a drag queen, and they said, well, the kindergartners are not going to know. And I said to this person, I said, are you using gender bias to assume that person's gender?
Yeah.
This person don't like me and they run the whole school district and I don't care because I will stand on business every time. You are not going to.
As you should.
As you should.
Because you're right. Pick and choose when they want to use it and impart this. Always. It never fails. And it's just like, well.
Yeah.
The hypocrisy is so strange. And this
so strange.
It's been a wild ride in this position. I never ever in my life thought that I'd be in a position where I had to tell a person in their 50s not to use the N-word because they're white. I've never thought that I would have to have conversations like that with colleagues about using slurs. Kids, yeah.
Kids make sense. Grown adults, not so much. You have a lot less empathy or sympathy for that? Empathy as an adult, because now you can just get your ass beat.
Facts have been drawn.
Two adults duking it out.
Yeah, lots of people, lots of staff members and parents have responded really, really well to the lessons. My admin seems to like the lessons. Since I'm at 2 buildings, I do have 2 different admins. One loves me, one don't like me that much, and that's all right. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. That's all right. But I think it's about like being able to like still try and get to the root of the equity gaps that we're seeing.
Yeah.
And I think like at one of my schools, there was a class where nobody knew it was Black History Month. And that was rough for me, especially because I still gave like presentations and stuff and lessons. But the response of like, hey, what month is it, you guys? I love to read month. What?
Yeah.
Girl, no, it's Black History Month. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Love to read. Like, if you're talking about reading, like Frederick Douglass, that's what we're talking about, okay? That's it. So, yeah, it's the disparities are interesting amongst like public school, right? And even just looking at like people in my position, not everybody does things the same either, which is just it's so it's hard to see like it's hard to know what to expect from a position like this, right? But yeah, I mean, overall the lessons and stuff, I think they're helpful. I'm giving a presentation this upcoming week on like slurs and things of that nature, just since there have been some unfortunate incidences.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and with that one too, like I invited my boss to come co-teach with me because number one, he has taught at this school, and so the kids know him. Number two, he is an additional person of color, different than myself, who can provide an additional lens, right? So I think that's important too with equity. I think we get into these traps and tropes, and one of them, I just went on a professional development, a conference about this, and one of the tropes is white savior, or the lone horse or the lone ranger. So the white savior is the person who's like, I got it. I'm doing all the equity and it's me and I'm the most equitable, right? And then the lone ranger is the sole Black person or sole person of color that you're like, all right, all equity is on you.
Yeah.
Right. And those are what I feel like we're so stuck between in education. And how do we get into something that's more meaningful and more impactful? And to me, a huge part of that is emotional intelligence. How much reflecting are you doing? Yeah.
No, 100%. I think emotional intelligence, and the thing is like you don't necessarily have that with a lot of older generations. And honestly, our generation, millennials, there's not a lot of, I keep losing rings left and right. There's not, it's like the third one that's fell off my fingers. I just let them go. But it's just, there's a lot where, and that's why I think like teaching social emotional learning, especially at like a young age and implementing that in the schools is what helps provide that emotional intelligence and maturity as they get older, which will provide better teachers, which will provide, more inclusivity. You won't have those lone rangers. You won't have those. I mean, you can still, but like there's a better opportunity for other people to also be on board with equity.
What's wild is like my mother-in-law works at a completely different school in a completely different school district, right? Smaller town. And my in-laws are both Trump supporters, right? They are incredible people that I have a good relationship with, but there are things that I noticed that that people who voted for Trump, they're like tunnel vision, right? It's like, well, I'm focused on this one thing and he's going to make this one thing better. You might be right. You might be right, dog. But that doesn't mean that all this over here isn't going to collapse. And it's like, yeah, well, that don't affect me. I'm like, cool. If that's how you live your life, that's how you live my life. Live your life. That's not how I do it. Right. And so what's interesting, we were talking one day, and I guess right after the election, there were teachers, staff members who were crying and at the school, and they decided the best course of action would be to have an announcement on the speakers that said, "Dear staff, we all need to keep our emotions in check right now."
First of all, if you don't leave me alone and let me cry,
I would have so quickly walked out of that school and been like, yeah, fuck you. Yeah, fuck you. And that's not the kind of district we live in. Like literally a couple weeks ago, a high school, like a bunch of students at a high school, like 200 of them, they organized a walkout due to immigration. Right. And so we have schools like that who are pushing some stuff, but that doesn't mean we still don't have these people who come in and to know, well, let me just say, if you're an educator and you voted for Trump, on behalf of myself, fuck you. Because how dare you?
Fair enough.
How fucking dare you?
Fair enough. And you're literally trying to dismantle the Department of Education. So,
you know, with that, I'm like, do I have to pay my loans?
Yeah, no, we still have to pay shit.
I mean, if it's dismantled, so is that. It's in my books.
They're like, we not.
I know the money. No, the Department of Education expends all money to the loans.
We want.
I don't think people understand. I've had to explain to adults many times, you know, they're like, well, the Department of Education, it's just a bank and this and that. And I'm just like, okay, I don't think you understand. IEPs, individualized evaluation plans, right? Those literally have to do with disability rights, and they have to do with learning disabilities. Those are enforced by the Department of Education. Discrimination policies, or sometimes lack thereof. But discrimination policies are supposed to be ran by Department of Education, right? Title IX funding, Title I funding, excuse me. That's supposed to be by Department of Education. The amount of resources that schools are going to lose, specifically schools that are already redlined, right? And already have been pushed into areas where this is the person of color school, right? They are going to lose so much, because if you look at Title I schools who are getting this funding, and then you look at the demographics, 9 times out of 10, majority is people of color and low SES situations, right? And that to me is such a direct and blunt discrimination and oppression, and to think any other way makes no sense to me. And so I hate to, you know, I really like to leave politics out of school as much as possible, but unfortunately, this is no longer politics, right? Yeah. This is just livelihoods. Like, we're not talking politics anymore. We're talking people. And that's where I don't know how to leave that at the door. And I struggle with that a lot, because people who are close to me have, you know, let me know that, oh, they voted for Trump, but here's why. Like, no, here's why. Like, I'm good. That's cool. You do you. I'm not characterizing you as a hateful person. What I am saying is I don't want anything to do with that.
Yeah, I don't want to associate with it. I don't want to be a part of it. Especially with what's going on, you know, and how much is being dismantled.
It's just very interesting to see how upset a lot of people are at what they've done. But I will be honest, like, a lot of the stuff none of this is a surprise. Like, it was there. Yeah. I just don't think people thought it would happen, which, I mean, honestly, it's like, there's no way that all of this is going to happen in most people's heads. But I can honestly say, I've never seen people work harder against their own interests in my life. In my entire existence, I've never seen people work harder against their own interests.
Yeah.
I mean, it's wild.
It is.
It is wild.
It is.
It's fascinating.
Let her drink that water.
Yeah. Let her. She's going to town on that water.
Drink that water. She's going to town. She's thirsty. Go lay down.
Good.
She said
Diddy.
he's talking about me.
I am. Go lay down, mamas.
You get it, Diddy. You
Nothing
can't hear
like that.
nothing over there.
Did you
Can't
hear it?
shit. Yeah.
I heard it. She can't hear it.
She can't hear nothing. Her ears are perked up. She can't hear shit. Go lay down. Go lay down.
Dude, just being a baby.
Go lay down. Go lay down. Good girl, Noodles. She was. That's why I was like, you want to give her a beanie?
It sounds like I'm serious. I'm like, their own personal taking it out.
No.
Leave it in. Leave it in.
I think it's interesting that people are shocked, number one. But number two, I think it's interesting that liberals are shocked. That I'm just like, okay, be so for real right now. I need you to pay attention. I need you to buckle down because we're in it right now. Okay, this is all intentional, all of it. The boom, 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 boom policy. They're trying to confuse you, and it's working.
Yeah.
Okay, you need to buckle down. You need to focus on the facts. What is happening? What is actually happening? Because they're going to say a lot of shit. They're going to try to do a lot of shit. They're going to sign shit that don't even mean shit, and they know it's not going to get passed.
Yeah.
But the purpose, it's on principle that we're signing this shit.
Yeah.
Right. And unfortunately, like, that's what I'm seeing. I really didn't think that a lot of it would affect the education system so quickly. Right. Like, I knew it would affect it, but I didn't know how quickly it would go into play. And it's almost retroactive that, like, it started going into play before Donald Trump got back into presidency, right?
It really did, because I mean, they've been banning books here in Florida left, right, and
Well,
center.
yeah.
Like, Florida has, I think they have a good 40% or around 40% of the books that are banned nationally are in Florida.
Yeah, Florida's
I love it.
on one for a while.
Yeah.
I love you guys, but Florida's a goddamn chode. Y'all need to get up out of there.
Oh no, we are. Yes.
Yeah.
They need to secede. We don't want to be a part of y'all anyway.
Listen,
Yeah.
give it a few more years. It'll be right under the water.
Girl,
Right under it.
let's only hope that it take everybody else with it, because this place is wild.
Wow.
Wow.
So, in regards to just your overall field, what is like how has it been for you being Latina and working in the field? I know you've kind of explained that, but just like getting there and really just being in it.
Well, I think because I live in Minnesota, I'm a little bit more of a token, right? And so I can't lie. Sometimes I feel like Jennifer Lopez. I'm like, I'm Puerto Rican. I'm Puerto Rican. I'm Puerto Rican. I'm like, dang, girl, how many times are you going to say you're Puerto Rican? And
Facts.
you know what I mean? And
So I'm Jenny from the block. You know, I make fun of that bitch all the time. From the block. I ran around the block. She ran around in her suburbs. Anyways, continue.
like, what was that order? What's the orange drink? Somebody tell me what the orange drink
Girl.
is.
I'm Jenny from the. Anyways. All right, go ahead.
You know, it's hard though, because you never want to come off that way. But honestly, sometimes it's like that because let's not forget about, like, white passing is a real thing, right? And people, while I am not the most white passing in the world, I'm also not the most Boricua looking person in the world either, right? Not that there's like one
I
specific
don't know. I
look
see
for
the
that.
brown.
Well, you know,
I see the brown. I see
And
it.
I think-
you look very brown.
Yeah.
most people guess that I'm something, you know, but they don't know what it is. And I think, you know, because the Puerto Rican culture is so important to me, because you know, I've started to study it in like current years, just like you have, Shelby. And I think connecting with those roots, it's always been important for me to identify that. But it's been an interesting time in Minnesota. Number one, I do love being here in regards to education. Education here is fantastic. I think overall Minnesota does a really good job. You know, they don't back down with like women's rights, all sorts of things. They are really awesome. Let's not forget Tim Walz. That's the grandpa up in here, right? He running this bitch.
Love him.
So we love him. And it's been interesting because, again, lots of people up here are not used to cultural diversity, as far as like even just like Hispanic diversity. So it's Mexican. That is what you are. You are Mexican. Okay. And so I am going to ask you, do you speak a Mexican? No, motherfucker. That's not a goddamn language. And so that's been something that's been a theme for a long time. Been hearing like, do you speak Mexican? And I think
yeah, this
I can only imagine I can only imagine the microaggression. Girl,
the microaggressions.
Because
I got
people
asked a lot. In Indiana, I got asked a lot, are you Mexican?
I would love to just write a book on microaggressions from anyone that's not white.
Girl.
You know, if a person of color had to address the microaggressions that they dealt with in a week, you wouldn't have enough time to do your goddamn job.
Listen,
you know what I mean? And so there, you pick your battles.
No, for sure. For sure.
People, Deidre had, I'm going to say this. You cut out. Deidre had somebody ask how she washed her hair.
And how I scratched my
how she scratched her head.
I'm going to smack the fuck out of her.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. Like, I've seen multiple teachers when I was working specifically in like a predominantly Black and Hispanic school, middle school. I had this teacher who I reamed because she went up to this little girl, fresh twist, right? Fresh twist. She looking good. She's killing it. She says, "Can I touch your hair?" And she just touches it without even.
I hate that.
Always gets me because it's like, while you're like mid touch, can I touch your hair? And you're like, well, you're already on my hair. Get off me. But you know what's so funny? So I was at the airport. And I was in the bathroom. You saw how I was dressed.
Yeah.
And this white lady walks up to me and she's like, "Oh, I just love your dress." And I said, "Get off me." Get off me.
Yeah.
She's like, "I'm so sorry." I was like, "Why are you about to touch me? I don't even know you." She was like, "I am so sorry."
Yeah. You should be.
Girl,
what do you mean you should be?
Girl, so much. It's just the audacity.
Why do you reach out
in the bathroom, girl? You didn't even hit the sink.
I'm gonna touch your hair. I'm gonna touch your hair. But they do this. Your hair's so nice. How'd you get here? And I'm like, why are you touching my hair?
The thing that always gets me is though, like, why? Like, oh my gosh, I just didn't like you couldn't have hair. Like, your hair is supposed to be to do something.
You want to know why it is? You want to know why it is? Because white people don't have anything that's exotic about them, so nobody's running up to them being like, "Oh my God, you have great hair. Oh my God, you have great clothing." No, because white people don't dress like that, so they don't get that attention.
Yeah.
That's why they run up to other people and run up to the minorities and people in other ethnic groups, and they're like, "Oh my God, you have just the best hair ever."
It's just weird.
It's an interesting thing because I just saw a video the other day of this young Black girl who was talking about she saw some study where people were talking about who the most beautiful women were, right? And she's like, I noticed that when you ask white people who the most beautiful woman is, they'll say someone like Jennifer Aniston, right? And she's like, yeah, she's pretty, but like, she's like, what I notice is that there's a couple of things. She also said, she's like, oh, I noticed that not a lot of people say redheads, right? Like, not a lot of white people think like redheads are pretty. And she's like, what I notice is like Jessica Chastain, right? Gorgeous. And this girl, she was like, Angelina Jolie, gorgeous. She's like, because I, as a Black woman, see a pronounced feature and I think, that's something special, right? Whereas white people see, very like nothing sticks out.
Very nice. We were just talking about this yesterday. Yeah.
It's all blended in, right? You know, and I was like fascinated by this perspective because I was just like, that's such an interesting thing because I've always thought that was like Jennifer Aniston, like very, very pretty woman, very, very pretty woman for sure. In my mind, I'm like, oh, you're very like, you know, classic, like pretty, you know, but to me, and of course it's different for everybody, right? To me personally, that's not a double take for me. Right.
No,
and that's 100%. Not to belittle.
Lupita Nyong'o. That's a double take for me.
There's beautiful. A reason, right?
Selma Hayek. Selma Hayek looks good as fuck.
I don't understand that.
Oh my God.
I thought, anyway, I saw it the other day and I was like, oh my God, still?
Yes.
Go ahead.
In the microaggressions too, it's interesting that they can be so small. Like I talk to my kids different than I do to the staff because I know how to code switch or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so when I talk to my kids specifically, a lot of kids that come to me end up being kids of color. And that's not like I don't choose them; they just end up gravitating towards me. And part of that is, part of that is because they talk to me crazy, and I'm not going to be like, "Watch your tone now." I literally look at them and I say, "Play with your mama, not with me. You want me to call someone? What you doing?" And they're like, "Yeah, I love you, but don't act like a fool." And the one thing I say to them 24/7 is we don't live up to stereotypes up in here. So you can do that bullshit out there, but you are not coming in here, play and pretend. I'm a YN. No, you ain't. Sit your ass down. You gonna learn.
And it's so important that exists. And
Absolutely.
I'm gonna be very honest with you. I know with everything that's going on in the world that it's probably it probably will never exist or won't exist in the near future. But a position like yours would be, and specifically just you in the position, would be very much needed around the country. Like if there was like a big,
literally,
if
was
there was like
that.
a big, like a head office, and you could be like that girl, and you just go from school to school to school within the country and teach this shit, it would be. I just think the country overall would be just better for
Write
it.
a book.
Like if
write a goddamn
whatever
book. If you don't
can
write
happen.
a book, Sabrina.
No, yeah. I think that there's lots of people. There's lots of people in positions that maybe not specifically like titled my position, but people who are doing this work and are oftentimes just not recognized, right? Because someone doesn't put them on a platform to be recognized.
Yeah.
And most of the time, too, I'm not gonna lie, it's Black women. Most of the time, it's Black women who are out here doing the work that really needs to be done. The person who runs the curriculum in my district and who does the equity portion of curriculum, Black woman, and I think that too, we're so not used to uplifting women of color, that it is such a strange thing. Like still to this day, the upper people in our district, it's all a little bit of a boys club, and it's like, I notice that in the people around you who are women, they're digestible. They're very digestible for you and for men overall. It's subservient almost a little bit, not to denigrate them, but I think they put themselves in that position because that's where they wanted to be, whether that's internalized stuff or whatever, live your life. I'm not a huge fan, but so, I mean, overall, I think that it's hard. It's hard. It's a hard position. Like I said, it's a lot easier with kids than it is having to deal with the adult portion of it.
I'm sure.
And I think that's kind of like with being a Latino woman, I've been called a slur by an adult in the district. I have been also questioned. Like I had a person tell me that I didn't look like anything. And that it was weird that, kids of color were coming to me because I didn't look like anything.
Was this person by chance a white person that said you didn't look like anything?
Because they
from the mountains of Caucasus.
They always find it.
They always know them.
The audacity built there. I don't know if you knew they grow it actually.
Oh no.
Oh, the blonde wig.
Oh man, did you ever watch Ed, Ed and Eddie?
Oh yeah.
Did you ever plank?
They plank with the wig.
I cannot plank.
Go throw plank with a wig. That's what white people look like. And even he look a little more ethnic
because he's a little bit brown. That's a damn shame.
Tony Plank don't look like you, Latino. Or light skin.
Oh, I just got hot.
Oh, I'm dying. My face is red.
Oh, my eyes.
Oh God.
You don't have to worry about this cutting off now because it's alright. It's good.
Yeah, it should be good. Oh
no, I think
sorry.
You'd find it interesting though. Like at my school, my kids already know that if they are to say like, oh well, I'm white, I cut them off, and I'm like, nope, no, you're not. What are you? And at first they were like jarred by that. And they're like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm like, what are you? White is not something to me. That's not a race. That's nothing. What are you? What are your roots? And I force kids to go deep and say, okay, you're Norwegian. What does that mean? What does it mean to be Norwegian? Yes, it does mean white. No, but it's interesting to me because I think part of that is helping kids in a way dissociate from some of these ancestry things that they're like, God, that's not me, dude. I think that causes kids to become prejudiced and racist when we're constantly being like, well, these white people. Yeah, sure. I don't consider you one of them. What are you? Oh, you're Scandinavian? Cute. Love that for you. Right? And
Especially
I
for
want
the kids, because you can mold their brains
right.
into being something other than those white people.
Well, and it's so
Right.
funny because a lot of times kids don't have that. Like they don't
don't.
have that. They just don't.
They
Kids
don't.
are
Mhm.
kids will play with, they will do with whatever they want with whoever because they don't see it like that. And it's the outside things that are brought into their lives that make them feel that like that. Whether it's their parents, their grandparents, their aunties, and whoever is like. And it's really unfortunate because it's cool that you're having them do that. Because I know they're probably not doing that at home.
Yeah. We like to end on with every guest. What is a message that you would like to give to people for those that are listening or will possibly listen in the future? What's a message that you'd like to share?
I don't know, man. I guess the only message that I would share is that always be learning, always be curious. Education is power. Never let someone take that away from you. You have a fundamental human right to education, and to try and uplift others. And other marginalized communities. If you have power, use it for good.
Yeah. Very well said.
Hell yeah.
Very well said.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you, Sabrina, for being here and for sharing your knowledge and wisdom and your experience on what you do with those that are with our listeners. So I know there's going to be quite a few people who are going to really enjoy this episode.
Absolutely.
So
Thank you so much.
Yes, we love it. We love to see it.
Sure.
But anyways, guys, you already know the deal. Like, share, follow, subscribe, all of that good shit. If you are interested in being a guest on the podcast, please go ahead and send us an email. Our email address is
bitch.please.ds@gmail.com. That's bitch, BXTCH.PLEASE.DS, Delta Sigma, at gmail.com.
Yes. So please go ahead and send us an email. We've definitely received some requests already for some other people, so we appreciate that. We're going to be having more guests on as well. Let's give a big round of applause and thanks to Sabrina. Yes.
Amazing guest.
Yes. Thank you so much, guys. We love you so much. Bye. You don't have to.